What's up, Manifestation Queens? I have got Eric John Campbell on the podcast, my favorite manifestation book author. And you all know I am the Manifestation Queen. My favorite book. This is my favorite book, A Manual for Manifesting Your Dream Life. It's about 67, 68 pages of pure joy, inspiration, and you've just managed to simplify manifestation, which is actually, it's harder to write shorter books than it is very long.
Definitely,
You know?
I could see that, yeah. It could be harder.
So it can be harder. Where did this all start? Like, how did you get on the journey to manifestation?
Well, first of all, I'm really happy to hear that the book resonates with you. And I appreciate those kind words about the book. The journey is hard to pinpoint where it started because growing up, I was always listening to kind of new age spiritual type of talks. So, for example, my mom always had Abraham Hicks playing in the car radio and grew up in California, Northern California, where it was just a lot of that kind of stuff already there. And then I was always reading business books and spiritual books growing up and spiritual parables. So for some reason, I was always drawn to those books. But I always considered myself a business person, and the spiritual was just for fun until I had the spiritual awakening experience when I was 25. And that was like changed everything for me. And eventually that led to writing the book.
And what happened with the spiritual awakening?
So I was doing the digital nomad thing, just living in a city for a couple months, then go to a new city. Didn't really feel like I was being guided, but in hindsight, I was being guided by a force that I couldn't name or identify. And then I was living in Prague alone during a very cold, snowy winter. And I just woke up in my relatively small apartment, and I felt this presence inside of my body that I'd never felt before. And it kind of spooked me at first because I had no idea what this energy was, but I just opened a laptop and I felt this urge to write. And these words started pouring through me. And one line that kept repeating was, "Wake up, it's all energy, wake up, it's all energy." And from that moment onward, things started to shift really fast.
And is that where is that your first book, A Manual for Manifesting Your Dream Life? Is that
It's actually the
first
third,
book?
maybe fourth book.
Oh my goodness. I've only got two. I need to catch up. So which was the first one? That one after the spiritual awakening, you're writing the book. Did you release that book?
So after the spiritual awakening, I didn't write a book for a while. It was just what I wrote in the middle of the night was kind of like a personal message for me. But then the wake up, it's all energy I share because it kind of feels like a universal message.
Yeah, it is a universal message. So what does manifestation mean to you? Or how would you describe it to the listeners?
I think it's a beautiful question, and my perspective on it has shifted a lot. I used to think manifestation was the vision board, where it's like you visualize what you want, kind of like the Law of Attraction movie, which I think is like a great message, but it also, to me, it's shifted beyond that. It's less about attracting certain things into my life, like the specific people, life circumstances, and material things. They just feel like they match the vibration we're at. And if we're in a very happy vibration, very positive, we manifest things that often we don't even realize we want, that fulfill our soul and make our heart happier than the things I used to think I wanted. So many things I thought I wanted, I didn't really get, and I actually don't want them anymore because they were kind of desires I learned from the society growing up without even realizing it. And then now it's just much more simpler than that.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's fulfilling your soul's purpose and what you're supposed to do here on earth. And do you think your purpose is to write and spread kind of this message?
It's been a question I've asked myself a lot ever since that book came through, Manual for Manifesting Your Dream Life. Because for me, I never wrote it from a place of I figured it out and here's what I learned. It was just pure automatic writing when that book came through. And I know one of the big messages is focus on your heartstream life. But the part I always struggled with is what exactly is my heartstream life? So that's kind of been a personal search for me for a long time. Now I do feel like writing is the biggest expression of it. but I see it more as like a spiritual teacher. So I still like creating the social media posts and making videos, hopefully more in the future.
Yeah, and have you so for the people that are like struggling to figure out, you know, what do I really want in life? Like, where do I want to go? What do I want to do? Some people don't really even know. Where would you tell them to start?
It's a great question. I think the most popular answer, I'll just start there and then I'll share my personal opinion, is to ask yourself what you enjoyed in your childhood. Like, what did you do when you weren't really thinking about how to make a living or overthinking it too much to meet other people's expectations? It's just the thing that lit you up. And I absolutely think that's possible. And then I also think another question is, what would you do if you had unlimited money? Because I think so much of it is, I want more money so I can do the thing I love and be happy, instead of realizing you can start to do the things that make you happy. And they don't have to be this big, all-encompassing life purpose that changes the world. It could just be, I love baking, I love painting, I love dancing, and you just start there. And the more you do the things that light you up, the more you get inspired with other things you want to do. And you kind of just, oh, this sounds fun, this sounds fun. So it's really following the joy, I think.
Completely. I was in the hair salon yesterday, and I asked that question because it's in your book on a unique, the one on abundance, the unique path to wealth. And I asked her. I said, we were talking about the lotto, the lottery, you know, and it was like, I don't know, millions. And I said to her, what would you do if you won the lottery? And she said to me, I would still do hair. And I was like, yeah, I said the same. I said, even if I won the lottery now, I would still podcast. I would still, want to do events. I would still do my manifestation workshops. And I think that's a sign that you're on the right path. So phrasing it as like, if you had an unlimited amount of money, what would you do is such a great way to look at it. And I find that the majority of people struggle with money. Like when I do my manifestation masterclass, I ask people, what's the number one thing you're manifesting? And a lot of the time it's abundance. And it's not abundance for like the Chanel bag or the fancy car, the fancy house. It's really just to live a life not stressing about money. But people struggle a lot with money because I feel like they limit themselves to like, oh, well, I'm a teacher, so I can only earn X amount, or I'm a nurse, so I only can do. What would you say to people about the topic of the universe and money?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm just going to feel into it for a second. Yeah, I feel like it's so different for each person. I think we all need money to meet our essential needs. There's no denying that. And it's good to be honest about that and not deny our need for money. And at the same time, I think in general, a lot of us overemphasize the amount of happiness that more money will give us and the amount of money that we need to start doing what we love. I think there's this idea that it's all or nothing. It's like you need to have enough money to quit your full-time job to be a full-time artist if you want to paint or if you want to dance. And we can always find time to do a little bit of what we love, even if it's on the weekend. And I really believe those tiny bits where we get to fully express our soul can bring us more energy that we didn't even know we have. So during the week, if you feel constantly lethargic, the weekend you just want to binge TV and just recharge, it's not because of too much work. I'm not saying it's not stressful. It can be extremely stressful. But a lot of times, if we do the thing that just lights up our heart, even just for a little bit for the people we love, it brings so much energy. And all of a sudden, you have new, fresh ideas and you don't feel so tired anymore. You feel like you want to do more fun things that light up your soul. And I think just going from there is enough. I think we don't have to put all this pressure on, it needs to be a life-changing amount of money. And I know it feels like I want to just quit my job. I want to not do what I hate and just do what I love all the time. But let's just start step by step and not worry about trying to get to the finish line immediately. And just focus on how good you feel doing just 10 minutes of what you love, because that feeling will give you something that you can't even visualize now if you're in that state of it feels like nothing's fun, everything is heavy. It's like just a little bit of energy shift can get you completely out of that state and feeling good. And then from that place, new ideas will show up and new realities will feel possible that didn't feel possible before.
If you're not manifesting in 2025, then what are you doing? And for the love of the universe, will you take down your vision board? We know from neuroscience that you gotta write it to invite it. And that is why I created the Pause Penny Manifestation Box. 7 simple steps. Writing it down, visualization, and taking action, because we know action is key. And why should you listen to me? Well, you should listen to me because I've manifested it all. My soulmate, twins, dream job, dream houses, abundance. And I know that this is the right way. So you gotta write it to invite it. Pick up our bestseller manifestation box on pausepenny.com. And do you think that when you're on this path and this new energy kind of shows up, that the universe just brings you sort of opportunities, that the money almost shows up, or the opportunity in a different way will show up? It's like you're being guided by this bigger force to like say to you, you are on the right path.
I think the universe is always knocking with new opportunities, but a lot of times we're shutting the door on those opportunities without even realizing we've shut any door. It's just habitual. It's like a mental conversation that says, this is the way the world is. I keep listening to news that keep reaffirming my beliefs. Nothing can shift, nothing's possible for me. But it's really not how the whole world is for everyone. Everyone's having a different experience of the world. But when you're stuck in that mindset, it feels like nothing possibly can shift. And so the universe is like, wants to help you free yourself, I believe. Like it's constantly giving you opportunities, but it can feel like that wall prevents you from seeing that an opportunity has just presented itself to you. It doesn't even look like an opportunity if you believe those kind of things aren't possible for you to experience.
Oh, completely. I even find that myself, that the more joy I'm in, the more the opportunities just show up. But do you ever have, people ask me this question all the time. They're like, are you high vibe all the time? And I actually got a really interesting question yesterday that someone said to me, do we need to change our personality to be high vibe? And I'm colorful, like I'm not wearing color today, which is unusual. I usually have lots of colorful bracelets on, lots of colorful clothes. I'm more loud. I'm a definite like 100% extrovert. I love being on stage. I love talking. Like that's what brings me energy. But I think we're all different. Like, like when you say the energy for each particular person, how would you say like never to change your authentic self? Because it doesn't matter if what high vibe looks like to each individual.
That's a great point. Yeah, I see what you mean. Like a lot of people are very naturally extroverted. Like I'm not that way, and I hear you are that way. It's beautiful. And I think a lot of people associate high vibe with like always like a smiley personality and kind of like this bubbling energy. And it can be for some people. And then for other people, high vibe can also be very introverted in the coffee shop, kind of not really talking to too many people. It's more about your internal state. And I think appearances can be deceiving. But I understand the fundamental question, which is, do I have to change my personality in order to manifest a new life for myself? At least I believe that's kind of the core of the question.
Yeah.
And I think the answer is, it depends. Because it depends if what you say is your authentic self is actually your authentic self. And I think that's the spiritual journey, where it's really uncovering the layers of the onion to find out who we truly are. If you're being that true self, of course you don't have to change. The universe already sees you as perfect. I mean, it sees you as perfect wherever you are on the spectrum, but when you're that self, you'll become magnetic to everything that makes you happy. So you may not be a very like bubbly person, but you won't manifest the same things that a bubbly person who's aligned with their heart will manifest. You'll manifest things that align with your heart. So I think a lot of it is shedding these parts of ourselves and even mourning these parts of ourselves that we've been carrying for so long that actually aren't a core part of who we are, and realizing that a lot of these parts of ourselves that we thought have always been a part of ourselves may have actually been learned from someone else. And it's really relieving to let that energetic weight go. It's like when you're carrying this heavy backpack for many years and you don't even realize you're carrying it. And the moment it's lifted, you're like, I can't even believe life feels this light. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah, and I agree. Like, we're all on a different path, a different journey. We all have different personalities, but we're all also manifesting different things. But there are some threads of kind of, I see a lot of like things that people have in common, like they really want to manifest connection, you know, more friendships, connection, or something like a soulmate. A soulmate's a really, really big one. And a lot of women who follow me, it's a baby. They want to... Do you believe that we can manifest anything we want if we believe that it's possible?
Absolutely. And I believe if it's a true heart's desire, not only can we manifest it, but it's the most natural thing for us to evolve into attracting into our life. So the reason why we want something so badly is because it's meant for us. Like, it's kind of the Rumi quote where it's like, what you seek is seeking you. I think it's Rumi, but it could be someone else. But I truly believe that. Yeah.
I love that. I have never heard
Yeah,
that.
I might want to check. Maybe that's not the source.
Yeah. But I'll check. It's okay. It's still a great quote. But you said earlier, like, I have had things in my life that I haven't manifested, but I feel like something better might have come along. Do you think that the intention needs to be pure and good, as opposed to, like, let's say, oh, I want to manifest this because everybody will think I'm great if I get a best-selling book, or if I do you think that the intention behind what you want to manifest needs to be more pure and authentic, or it's just a matter of if you want it, if you believe it, it's going to happen?
I think the intention is extremely important, but it's not because the universe is deciding who's worthy of it and who's not. I think it's more of the intention has to be pure, because if it's not pure, you may manifest something that your heart doesn't even truly want. It's like the soulmate as a classic example. Like, I know so many people crave a soulmate, and we want someone that's a match for us, but at the same time, we may have an idea of a person that's not even a real person that we think we want from watching so many movies or books. And it's more of the universe is withholding this imaginary person that you think you want. Maybe, depends on the person, but maybe it's actually to protect you, because if you were to find this person that fits your box of what you think you want, it would actually prevent you from finding your more authentic self underneath. So I think with soulmate and community, it's always about knowing your true self first. And of course, I know these feelings, like I always crave community, like community warms my heart so much. But it's like we have to show, someone else told me this after a breathwork class, it really resonated with me. They're like, we have to show up as our true self in order to attract the community of people that we actually want to hang out with.
I love that. I love it. And a lot of the time people see repeating behaviors. So I'll get people that say to me, oh, I just met somebody who's can't commit, and I seem to have this same cycle of a guy who can't commit, or friends who just are not supportive in the way that I am supportive. Like, let's say, not me personally, but other people. So they seem to be attracting the same things. Like, it's like they're repeating the same mistakes. You know, if you call them mistakes, I think everything can be there for learning. Do you think this is the universe's way of coming back to you and saying, if you don't break this, you are going to continue to get what you've always gotten, but at some point you need to tell the universe or tell these people, like, that's it, enough. Like, and then the right people will show up? Like, how come the same cycles keep repeating for some people?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I see it in a lot of movies where it's like you see the character is repeating a cycle in the first third of the movie, and then they have some kind of thing that forces them into this new adventure where they're forced to change themselves, and then they change themselves, and then it's usually implied or they directly show that they've attracted the person that they really like fits them well. And so I think it is the universe constantly giving us calls to action, opportunities to change and grow. But I think it's so much about thinking that the external state needs to change before the internal state can change. So this idea is, I need to meet this person and then I'll be happy and fulfilled, instead of I'm happy and fulfilled and now my external world, which is just a mirror, reflects my new internal world. So I think when the same life situation is manifesting in your life, to whoever's listening, like of course I have my own challenges in different areas of life with this as well. It's because we haven't changed our internal beliefs around it or an internal state. So looks like we're making progress because we're jumping from person to person or place to place. But really, because we haven't changed our internal world, we're still manifesting the exact same energy through a new form.
And it just keeps showing up and showing up and showing up. And how do people break that cycle?
I think awareness is the most important. So if you're aware that you're in that cycle, you've already broken it. So it's kind of a strange thing, but it's really easy. And then the rest will unfold from that point. I mean, it sounds easy when you say it, but it can be extremely hard when you're in it, I know.
Yeah, you have to work. You're working on yourself. One of the biggest challenges I think people find is trusting. Like trusting the timing of their life and letting go, like knowing that it's going to happen. I have a fierce belief that everything will work out for my highest good. But I have this belief based on my life experiences. You know, like I struggled to have a baby, and then I said I was going to manifest twins, 2 boys at Christmas, and I had this, I was visualizing. Now it took some time, but it's exactly what happened as I visualized it.
That's amazing.
And that was probably and a lot of people are like, Yvonne, it's science, you can't manifest that. But like, I had this belief that I'd have twins, 2 boys at Christmas, and I had twins, 2 boys, and I had them on Christmas Eve of 2022. Now, it took a long time because I was manifesting initially out of fear. So I was like, if I have 2 boys, I'm done. I'm done. Like, I'll have my 2 boys, I'll have 2 kids. I didn't want an only child. So I was manifesting out of fear. So it didn't happen for me for 7 years because I had at the point that I had 2 kids before that, so at this point I'd let go. But a lot of people are struggling because we're getting older. So like if you want to meet somebody and maybe you want to settle down and you want to have kids, the panic starts to set in, because the reality is for women is that we kind of are on a biological clock, or that's what society tells us, and science tells us as well. What would you tell people in terms of letting go and trusting the timing?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I mean, I think I experienced the same thing. The hardest time to have faith is when you don't have evidence to back it up, because you still have all these beliefs that you've learned, whether conscious, mostly unconscious usually. I mean, this is my experience. And you don't even realize you're holding them. And then you don't have any evidence in your life to contradict the beliefs that you're holding. And so it feels like, at least for me, I feel like I'm the crazy person. Like to have beliefs that are different than the beliefs that everyone else around me seem to hold is very scary. And it's probably in our biology to be afraid of that because it feels like we're the outcasts in the group. But it's also a necessary leap of faith. It's almost like initiation into a wonderful new life. But I know it's really hard, and with the biological clock, I know the fear is so strong. And I think for a lot of people, they feel this pressure also in different ways. This is one very common way. Also, financial pressure can test your faith. And there's probably 100 other different forms of this. And I always like to look at movies as metaphors. There's always some kind of pressure. Otherwise, it would be too easy. And it would just be like, everyone would have faith, of course, if there was no reason why it's hard to have faith. But that's what makes faith so magical. But I don't want to dismiss the fear, because I think we have to really be honest about that fear and embrace it and not deny it, and just breathe into it and accept it as it is, and then keep listening to the heart as it guides each person individually. I don't think there's a universal answer.
Yeah. When you talk about the universe, what do you mean when you say universe?
It's really interesting, because when I wrote the book, A Manual for Manifesting Your Dream Life, I originally used the word spirit. That's just what came through. And then I realized that more people identify with the word universe. But for me, the words are interchangeable. I think it's a higher self. It's like it's hard to put into words, but it's the energy that we're all connected to, in my belief, that can see everything, that we're all a part of, and we forget that we're an intimate part of this. We're one with the universe, and a lot of people would say we are the universe, and I believe that too. Like we are this higher self. At the same time, we also are an individuated piece of it. So I don't know how to put it in words. It's a great question. It's a tough one. It's a feeling.
Yeah, I'm it is. Yeah, and I kind of the same. When I talk about universe, I always say, "Oh, you put it out to the universe, like put out to," but what I really mean is you are the universe. We are the universe. We are creating our lives with our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs, is what I believe. Do you believe that we can manifest in the negative? Mm-hmm. Do you believe that our thoughts, negative thoughts around health, sickness, maybe, what we're saying to ourselves can manifest in a negative way?
It's a great question, because I think this is one of the most common fears I have with people messaging me. It says like, did I manifest something negative, or I have these negative thoughts? Am I manifesting something negative? I don't think it works in the same way as manifesting positive things. I mean, I really see the universe as benevolent. I think it's like this is all a playground, and it's very loving, but the illusion can convince us the fear is real. And if we can't deny it, we have to experience it as real, but also know that we're never alone, and there really are invisible forces guiding us. I mean, I know this sounds crazy to a lot of people, but I really believe it as well. So when the question comes about manifesting in the negative, I feel like there's a lot more protection than we realize. It's not like if we have negative thoughts that are reoccurring, we're going to attract something negative into our lives. I don't believe that at all. It's just an opportunity when we become aware that we have this negative habitual thinking to reprogram ourselves. And I think when we reprogram into the positive, the universe responds, because we are the universe, responds much more than in the negative.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think that if you're have a negative mindset and a continuous negative mindset, your energy, your vibration is low. So therefore, you're just not attracting in the opportunities, the people, and all of that. But I do feel sometimes like I was always saying negative things about my health, always, and it was always going wrong. But maybe, again, that's your perception, that you're saying it's going wrong, but actually you're alive, so you're grateful. So it's almost a positive. You could look at it at lots of different ways. How do you? This is a hard one, but like for you, when you're flat or low, I'm sure everybody gets low
Absolutely.
days, right? How do you come out of that? Or what do you say to people who are like, I'm just in a low vibe state and I can't, I really want, what do I do to pull myself out of it?
It's definitely a good question. I think I'm going to feel into the answer to that one. it depends on the person, because sometimes a low state means there's emotion that's not being expressed. And if that's the case, then I think the answer is to lean into that emotion, to lean into the negative feeling. But then there's other people who feel like they're trapped in perpetual negativity, and the opposite advice would apply, where it's not about leaning into the negative, it's more like shaking yourself out of it, or depends on a specific case, but you could also be like finding things to be grateful in your present moment. I know that's something that I write about in the book as well, but like something you're genuinely thankful for, not like a affirmation where you're pretending to be grateful for something that you're not grateful for. But one thing I find when I feel flat is it always feels like it's going to be this way for the rest of my life. It's so weird how in that moment I feel like nothing can change this. I'll never feel happy again. It's just terrible. And then when I'm out of that state, all of a sudden I'm super optimistic. Life feels amazing again. And I'm like, okay, now that I feel amazing, next time I'm in that flat state, I'm going to remember this feeling. I'm not going to let myself get to that place again. But when it comes again, it's like the craziest fog. I don't know.
And how do you, I know exactly what you mean. I actually have gotten to the stage where I have a flat day. It actually happened with you, right? So I think a lot of people will know I started the podcast like over a year ago, and you were the first guest that I was like, I got to get this guy on. I love his book. I love it. And what I was doing was I had the book, but I would tag you on Instagram. And I was like, he's going to see my message. But my intention was you would see my message and you would respond, right? So I'm taking action and I'm like, but you never responded because you have a massive following. And also, maybe, just maybe, the timing wasn't right. So I'm sitting at home on my couch and I have your book because I always bring out that book. My favorite one is that one on a manual for manifesting. And I just open it up on any page. And my husband walked by and I said to him, you know, this book, and my husband thinks he gets manifestation, but he's not like into it like I am. Like I believe anything is possible. And he's like, well, there are some limits, Yvonne. And I'm like, no, there's no limits in my world. In my Delulu world, there are no limits. And I said, I love this book. And I put it on my Instagram stories, and I tagged you, but it was really, the intention was so like, this guy's not, I had zero intention of you responding. Because at this point I had kind of let go. I was like, he's not going to respond to me. You know, that was my, like, I had just let it go. And the next day I woke up and I was kind of flat. And I just said to myself, something good is going to happen to me today. Something good. I just kept repeating it because I was just in this low vibe state. And you sent me a message. And I was like, oh my God, the universe is wild. Do you think that we have to put it out there to the universe? Like I actually said as well, when I was holding your book and I tagged you on Instagram, I actually said, universe, and I said it out loud. Usually I don't say things out loud, but I actually said this out loud. I said, universe, help me find a way to Eric John Campbell. That's what I said. And the very next day you messaged me. And by the way, like I said, folks, I have been tagging for a long time. Why do you think some things show up at certain times? Is it maybe you're not aligned at that time for it, or I'm not aligned, or a mix of both? Could it be that the other person's not ready either?
I love that story. It's so beautiful. Thanks for sharing. I could tell you from my perspective, and also, but to answer that first question, I think it's not becoming too attached to the specific people or way that it has to manifest. Because in this case, from my side, I just kind of was like in very private mode for a long time. I didn't want to do podcasts. So I think no matter like what you would try to manifest, it would be impossible to shift me when I'm in that place to get on a podcast. And yet when you sent that message, I just had, my intuition was just like, go on, like, it's great, it's a fit, it's time. I was like, okay, let's do it. So it wasn't like anything that you could have predicted would make this happen. I mean, in my opinion, I think it was just about alignment. But maybe you shifted me. I mean, how would I know? It's just my intuition told me a yes, and I can't be 100% clear where it comes from. But it must have been for the highest good of us both.
Yeah, the people need to hear you and see you. And you do that already. Like your books are online, but you're probably of all you're least present in your physical present on your social media, as in like it's your, and that's the way you show up in the world, and that's your authentic self, right? So you've got to do what works for you. Do you believe that, I get this question a lot, do you think we can manifest for other people?
I don't believe so. I mean, I think we can co-manifest with other people, but never without their permission. And each person is the creator of their life, but we can't create anyone else's life. We can change together, but it's always with permission from both people.
I 100% agree with that. I always say to people, you can't manifest for somebody else, but you can help them on their journey.
Yeah.
You know, you can definitely help them. And I do get this one too, and I would love to have your opinion on it. Some people might be married to somebody that's maybe a little bit more negative, or have certain friendship groups and there's people that are negative, or colleagues that are negative, and they feel like they just drain their vibe, or, you know, are stomping on their dreams of what they think is possible, because not everybody believes that manifestation is possible and there's a bigger guiding force out there. How would you deal with that, or what would you advise people if they feel like they've got somebody in their life that they have to have, because it could be a child, it could be a partner, it could be a colleague, so you have to be able to interact with certain people in your life that are just a bit more negative and bring you down?
It's tricky, very tricky. I think always important that we recognize that we're the creator of our life without also denying the effect that other people have in our life. And I believe that there's always an opportunity to grow and something to learn. And I've been surprised how often when I change myself, even these people that seem to always treat me a certain way start to treat me differently. But sometimes the lesson is also to walk away from that relationship. But I know in this specific example, these are relationships you can't walk away from. But I do think we underestimate in general our ability to change ourselves and the effect that will have in changing how other people treat us. So we may not be able to change another person, but when we change ourselves, we'll manifest different things from them, as in how they treat us. But there's some situations where you just have to leave the relationship if it's unhealthy. I don't want to deny that. But I do think that it's tough. I mean, it's one of the hardest parts, I think, either letting go of a relationship that is no longer serving you, or acknowledging that there's a dynamic here that hasn't been healed and it has to be healed to move forward.
Yeah. And would you now in your life, like, do you watch the news? Do you try and keep that stuff out? Or
it's tough. This is one I've actually changed recently on. Yeah. I used to never watch the news. I was always thinking like, this is low vibe. If I watch it, I feel heavy. I feel like lethargic. I should just not check it at all. Lately, I've started checking it a lot, just maybe from the US. I'm just more interested and just more curious, and I want to feel more connected to the world, not just completely separate from it. But it's extremely tricky. I mean, I'm now thinking I'm going to check it less than I have been because I do notice how it affects me. But it's always so hard to remember, and I keep reminding myself, when I'm checking it, it feels so personal, almost like my energy is so influenced by this thing. But if I actually look at how it affects me just objectively, usually what's happening in the news has very little to zero impact on my life and the life of the people that I love. So it's my choice to kind of give into that energy or to stay separate from it. So it's definitely a tricky balance, though. I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah, me too. Because my husband said to me last night, he was watching something. I was like, just turn this off. And he's like, Yvonne, you have to be aware of what's going on in the world. And I just sometimes say to him, like, well, I'm just living on a different planet here but you can't be oblivious to like what's going on in the world. But what I find is that when there's certain things going on, like war and children, that like really impacts me. Like I actually get almost physical pain. So like pain in my heart. So like sometimes I can't watch it. You know I need to be in a really good state, like to be able to view these things.
I also think a lot of people that are very like empathic or highly sensitive, it's like extra caution because it can affect you in a way that watching the news for someone else doesn't have the same effect. So it depends on the individual.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but my kind of two general broad stroke rules when manifesting is never ask how and never ask when. So even though I used to visualize having twins and I thought that it would be me carrying them, I was totally open to however it happened. I didn't care. I was like, I'm going to just be a mom. But I did actually put a timeline on it when I look back. But now I tell people, don't put a timeline on it because it's not your timeline. It's when you're aligned and ready. You need to trust the process. Do you agree with that? Or how do you view the people saying, how is it going to happen? And I want it to happen by Christmas, or I want it to happen by the new year.
Yeah, I've noticed, I can only speak from my personal experience. My timing has basically always been wrong. For anything that's manifested, it's like it manifests, but never in the timing that I expect. I think absolutely in my experience, the timing and the how is just surrender that and trust that it's always working out in my highest favor. I think that, what was I thinking about that? Something came up. And maybe it'll come back to me. Yeah, I noticed. Oh yeah, no, I remember now. It's like, I think it's very helpful to hear from other people, speak their experience. Like the how doesn't work, the timing doesn't work when you try to plan it out yourself, but the universe can handle it. And it knows ways to rearrange it better than we can. But I think it's very important to have that conclusion from your own direct life experience and not just repeat it from someone else tell you. I mean, it's good that they mirror it back and you have this idea, like seeded of idea planted in your head. But I think until you experience in your own life that, wow, the timing didn't work, but the manifestations still come, then it will become like super apparent. Like, okay, now I kind of understand how it works. Like learning how to ride a bike kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's actually one of my biggest challenges when people contact me, and I'm sure you get this on 10 times that I do. But it's so hard to advise people when I know, like I say to them, like, people would ask me, do you believe anything is possible? And I'll say, no, I know anything is possible. But I've got all these experiences to prove it. And it's almost trying to explain to them, it does work. It's going to happen for you. But you have to trust and believe that it will happen. Do you think that if somebody wants something in their life, like let's say the soulmate or the baby, but they're in a constant state of like, oh, there's nobody on the apps, or I keep it's never going to happen for me, or do you believe that it'll still work out, or that they possibly may not manifest this because they're just not aligned and their mindset is not aligned with it?
I think the most important part is also the absolute hardest part, which is the person that's manifesting has to believe it themselves. And that's tough. I mean, it can be easy for some things, but with the things that we really want, I noticed that's the hardest thing for me to believe, not because it's objectively harder to manifest, but just because usually the things we want the most, we have the longest running story that it's not possible for us for whatever reason. And to believe it's possible, we have to either let go or change that story, usually let go. And I think that's the tricky part. But I also think like that anything is possible. I also believe that 100%. But the thing is, your anything is very specific to you. So when someone says, is anything possible to manifest? I think there's really one thing in their heart that they're like, I really want this thing. Please tell me anything is possible. And the thing is, maybe this person won't become the most famous singer or the movie star or whatever, but that's not what they even want. For the one thing that they really genuinely want, absolutely that anything is possible for them. And I think that's the thing that can really help shift it is, I know it's a simple idea, we already mentioned it earlier, but if you believe that you have this desire for a reason, it's not random that you were born with this really strong desire. It's like specifically it was born in you because that's your most natural thing to manifest it. Like an orange tree, the desire is to produce oranges. It's just inevitable if you're not restricted. This can kind of help shift that mindset and help someone believe that, yes, it is possible for you to have that specific thing, even if no one else has done it before.
Yeah. And do you think that we get these like little whispers from I call them kind of whispers from the universe of like, this is where you're meant
Absolutely.
to go?
I mean, I use the word synchronicity, but it's the same thing, I think. Whispers, omens, synchronicities. And when we start looking for them, in my experience, I realize they're everywhere and they just don't stop coming. And I think at first the synchronicity or the whisper is like you want to tell someone this incredible thing that happened. You're like, this is why it's incredible because it was just this person said this, and then you could feel it in your heart. And then some people are like, kind of lukewarm reaction, and you're like, but it's an incredible story. But then eventually it happens more often, and then it becomes your normal. Like it doesn't even feel strange that a whisper or synchronicity happened today.
Did you ever struggle with like, launching your books and having that kind of ego part of you of like thinking it needs to get to this many people and it needs to get to number one, or, because writing a book is something that I would love to do as well. But like, I feel like, oh, it needs to have a broad, like the ego starts to creep. The ego starts to creep in. Like, how do you let go of that ego?
Such a good question. I don't have the answer because I've noticed, I can share with the book specifically, the ego is always there for me. And it always tends to be this pattern where something that I don't even think about just kind of works. And then the thing that I really want to work and I'm trying super hard to make it work is like, why is this not happening? Like, I think logically it should work. So with the book, I've always done random like online business things since I was a kid, but I didn't even plan on sharing the book. It was just like, I got this message, like write a book, and it was automatic writing. And I put it up on Amazon, but I did no marketing for it. And I think for like over a year, nothing happened with it. So I just, move on to the next project. And then it wasn't until I was on TikTok doing like tarot readings that I thought, oh yeah, I have this book. Why don't I just read a little bit in a video just for fun, see what happens. And then that kind of is what happened with that book.
Yeah, it's just amazing how the trajectory of how it can change. So you do tarot readings as well. Like what does that, because a lot of people, like I grow up in a very Catholic house, and my mom's like, Yvonne, no psychics, no cards, no. And I'm like, Mom, I believe in a God. Like, I just believe that there's something more, but whatever, if there's a bigger, more divine presence, that it's just love. And my God, or whatever I believe, is a loving God and doesn't care what I do, provided that I'm not hurting myself or anybody else, right? So when people like see different things like 777 or 222 or tarot cards, like, what does that mean? Or is it different for everyone?
Yeah, I look at the tarot as a tool. I actually don't really use tarot that much anymore, but it was a phase where I was really into it. But I still love it, like, because it was a part of my journey. I think I know I keep saying go back to the individual, but also in the book, The Manual for Manifesting, the universe has a unique way to communicate with each of us. And I know for a lot of people, the angel numbers is like the one that feels really fun, and it's just like the very accessible version. But for some people, it could be through tarot, through astrology, but it doesn't even have to be a new age spiritual tool. Maybe that's just like the type of things that I was drawn to growing up. But it could really be from anything. I mean, so many times when we're going through life, we overhear something from a conversation, like at a cafe, and then it's just like, why did that stick with me? I don't know, but it kind of feels like there's a reason why. It's just someone happened to say the perfect thing at the perfect time. And to me, that's kind of the same as the tarot or some other tool, where it's just your soul already has the answer, like the answer's already within you, and then it was mirrored back through this unique form. So I think the form specifically doesn't matter so much.
Yeah, because I think you're right. I mean, people ask me as well, do you manifest with crystals? And I always say, I don't, but I know other people that do. I write everything down. So I write it, I read it. I'm not into vision boards. Like I'm a real write. Do you visualize? Do you visualize what you would like your future to look
I
like?
used to for a long time. I mean, I love that you write. I think that's a very powerful tool. I always love writing. It's one of my favorites, of course. But I actually don't visualize as much as I used to because I realize I've been so wrong many times about what I think I actually want. It's like now I'm more about, at least at this stage in my life, feeling as good as I possibly can now, like kind of just embracing like this is the dream life. It's not something in the future that I'm working towards. It's like, how can I bring the feeling that I expect this dream life to give me right now, and how can I make that part of my daily life? And I think we can have all this abundance in the material form and we think that that's going to give us happiness, but at the end of the day we just want to feel good, and maybe the way that we feel good is different than how we think, like the thing we think we need to feel good is. And all the love and beauty and joy is like in this moment, is just, can we see it? So now instead of visualizing specific things, I'm more focused on my perspective. And it's not even trying to be in a perpetual state of joy, because I think that's also not a happy life, like genuinely full body happiness. It's more of seeing as much as possible that everything surrounding me, in this conversation, you, all of this is like love in physical form and in a like heart feeling embodied way, not just like saying it for the words, but really experiencing that. For me, that's what visualization is all about now. But it's not the right way. It's like a specific way. And in the past, it's changed so many times. So it's going to keep changing. Maybe. Just experience tells me that.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest challenges with people is they place their happiness in the future. And I did that personally when I wanted kids. I was like, I will be happy when I have a baby. I will be happy when, and then I got pregnant with the baby, and my job was going through rounds of redundancy, so I was made redundant. And I remember thinking, I have to get another job. So I had everything I wanted. I was pregnant, what I really wanted, but I was so consumed about the fact that I needed to get another job and when I had the baby, was I happy? Yes. Was I relieved? Yes. But was I happier? No. Because I think that you write, I have it in the book here. I have it underlined. I think it's so good. Let me just find the page for the people. I've written all over your book, by the way, because I love it. Where is it now? Oh, it's and I think it's really good. I think it says, if this is on page 22 of a manual for manifesting your dream life. If you're only thinking about how great your dream life will be while also being disappointed with your current life, then you'll keep manifesting a life where you're unhappy in the present moment. And then it says a little bit farther on, life is designed to fully enjoy and be in love with this present moment experience you're having now, while also being excited about what's coming next in your life. You have such a great way with
thank
words.
You. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Yeah. So what are you working on now?
Well,
What's next?
I'll say one quick thing about that quote first.
Yeah.
It's when the book came through, I mentioned before, it's automatic writing. And when I wrote it, I wrote a chapter a day. It was during COVID in Scotland. And then I would just type up what I wrote that day.
Oh, wow.
And it was just a way to teach me. So like these words were in my mind just to teach me. And then the next day more words would come through and I'd write it through. And I just considered this is what I need to learn. And I was sharing the quote for that book on TikTok and Instagram for around 2 years. And then I realized that quote that you shared, almost always when I share that quote, it's the most popular quote. And I think it's the lesson that I needed to learn the most from that book, personally.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And I actually believe myself that, I'll put affirmations up on my stories and things every day, but it's actually what I need to learn or teach or hear. And I do believe that a lot of writers, they're actually writing for them
Yeah,
for themselves.
definitely. I think it's
You know?
100% true for a lot of
Yeah.
people, myself included. Yeah.
But from the outside world, people think we know it all, but we're really just on a journey also.
I think that's like the one message I want to tell everyone, and just like speak it as loud as I can, but even though I don't talk too loud, it's just like the answers aren't within anyone else. I mean, when I grew up, I was always obsessed with finding out people that were successful and just like in my eyes successful, and asking them everything they know about life. And then I started to realize in university that someone would tell me something and then someone else would tell me the complete opposite thing. And it's just like the answers are within you, and each person is the only one who knows what their dream life is and how they want to live their life. And they can ask the most like seemingly wise or popular or expert thing, or read the book that's been around for hundreds of years that everyone is sworn by this book. But it might have the answer that's not what you need. It could even be an answer that contradicts what you need specifically. So I really feel like the beauty of meditation is going within and realizing that all the answers we seek are within us. And most of the time when we go out to learn, we're just looking for validation of what we already know. And we're just trying to find the teacher that confirms it for us so we can have confidence in ourselves. But everyone has the answer that they're seeking, I believe.
Yeah, I think that deep down, we all know what we want. We all know where we want to go in life, but there's something that might be holding us back, and that could be a limiting belief. Last question. This can be from your experience or just generally. How do you know you're on the right track?
It's not my answer, but a TikTok video just came to my mind where he said, when the path disappears, that's how you know you're on the right path. And you were asking what's next for me, and I think, like, for me, the path has disappeared too. I mean, I love writing. I love sharing writing on social media, but what comes next, I have no idea. And that's kind of the excitement of it for me. We'll see.
Yeah, I love that. So thank you. Thank you so much for your books, for what you're doing in this world, for what you're sharing, and for most importantly, giving me the most important thing, which is your time. I am so
Thank
grateful.
you. Yeah, my pleasure. And also I want to thank you for doing the work you're doing, and just for helping inspire people and also help get me out of my shyness a little bit, try a podcast. And I just think any work that anyone does to bring out the dream that lives in other people is so important. And I can feel like you just radiate this positive energy that gets people excited to pursue their dream. So it's awesome.
Oh, thank you. I knew we were going to meet one day.
Just the timing. We don't know the timing, but it's time.
We just don't know the timing. Well, have a great day. And thank you so much. Thank you.